On this episode of Marketing Mavericks, we talk to Peter Friedman, who is the chairman, founder, and CEO of LiveWorld.com. We talk about his experience at Apple and the learning lessons he took to LiveWorld.com and how they are the voice of the brand. We also talk about his book, The CMO's Social Media Handbook. Coming up next.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth from Marketing Mavericks is provided by CashFly at CACHEFLY.com.
This episode of Marketing Mavericks is brought to you by LegalZoom. It's National Start Your Business Month at LegalZoom, and the best time to create the business you've always dreamed of. LegalZoom is not a law firm, but they can connect you with an independent attorney. So visit LegalZoom.com and use offer code MM in the referral box to save even more. And by Squarespace. Squarespace is the easiest way to create a beautiful website, blog, or online store for you and your ideas. Go to squarespace.com and enter the offer code MM at checkout to get 10% off. This is Marketing Mavericks, episode 45, recorded Thursday, March 5th. Peter Friedman, chairman, founder, and CEO of LiveWorld.com. Welcome to Marketing Mavericks, where we talk about everything at the intersection of marketing and technology. And today we have a great guest who's going to share what they're doing in the space of social media, how social media engages with CMOs. We're going to talk about his background. I'm your host, Tonya Hall, and we have Brian filling in for us today in place of Anthony. Hello, Brian. I didn't even give you a heads up.
I'm here. I don't have a camera or anything on me, but I'm glad to fill in.
You're glad to fill in. It's because Anthony has the bird flu that I believe he got from Josh. That's the rumor.
It's been spreading quickly.
It's trending on Twitter, I think.
I hope not.
Which is what Josh says. Don't tell anybody I have the bird flu. It's too late, Josh. And our guest, who we're really excited to have, is joining us. He's Peter Friedman. He's the chairman, CEO, and founder of LiveWorld, and that's LiveWorld.com. Welcome, Peter.
Hi, I'm glad to be here.
In LiveWorld, we're so excited. We have mutual friends, and we were discussing earlier because when I was on the radio before, I know that we've been in the same circles. I think I had you on before, but certainly have not had you on here. And you've got such a great and interesting story, and what you're doing is great. You've got a book that we're going to talk about and how you advise C-level executives on how to engage on social media and how to get brands to engage. Hey, there's the book, which I need. I'm going to have to go on order. I want you to sign, though, my copy of the book.
We can get you a signed copy.
You can. You can hook me up with that. That'd be nice. And is your puppy there? And what's her name?
Sierra, the golden retriever.
Sierra, the golden retriever.
She's probably sleeping in the next room, but we can get her.
We do that here at Twit. That's how we roll.
Can you hear me?
So let's talk.
Jason, here she comes. Come on, Sierra.
Aw, see.
Come on. Have a treat. Come on. She's like radio shy.
Radio shy. Well, it's Twit shy.
One of you go get a dog biscuit out from above the oven and bring it to me, and then she'll come. She only does paid appearances, you know.
I don't think we have a lower third for Sierra.
PR stuff or something.
We just weren't ready for that.
I don't know. Boys, Jason. Yeah.
So what's the name of your book, Peter? While people are listening to this.
CMO's Social Media Handbook, a step-by-step guide for leading marketing teams in the social media world.
And LiveWorld, you guys have been around for how long?
19 years coming up in a month or so as LiveWorld, and 12 years before that at Apple Computer, where I led a team of people doing online community for Apple. So the core team actually has 31 years of experience in online community and social media.
You do, and I see some of your clients there with LiveWorld, big brands, which we want to talk about, how you're doing that with Bank of America, Allegria, I think Johnson & Johnson, I think Walmart, certainly Pfizer. You get a lot of Wells Fargo. So, and I want to talk about in finance specifically and regulatory and what you're doing at LiveWorld. But you mentioned Apple. I want to go back to how you got started in this industry of technology and what led you up to launching and founding Live World and what that means to you. But you actually mentioned you did work for Apple. You actually worked for Atari for a short period of time. You started at Atari. Woo! Get a little points in my book.
1 year to the minute.
To the minute.
I knew I was leaving and going to Apple, and I waited 2 days to resign so that I could do it at 5 o'clock on, the 365th day after I had come.
You're that guy at the gas tank who literally has to have everything sync up and, the number of gallons you have, everything has to line up, right?
Well, I just thought it would look better if I worked somewhere for a year before I left. That's all.
Well, that's one way of looking at it. But then you were at Apple for quite some time. I think 12 years. Is that right?
12 years, which at that time was a very long time. While I came, 35,000. The company generally had around 10 to 12,000 employees at that time, and 35,000 people came and went while I was there. When I left, there were only about 700 people there that had been there longer than me. It's great company, but not especially organized, also chaotic and all that. But I learned a lot. I had great experiences, and it kind of brought me to all of this.
Well, and you did have some interesting experience. I want you to share a little bit about that. First off, what was your role at Apple? What did you do? What was your core responsibility?
Well, I was essentially, my jobs changed a bunch over a number of years. Mostly it was product marketing and then marketing as I grew my career. Sometimes I was doing, strategy work for different groups. And I worked on a lot of networking and online communications types of things. And then ultimately I became the general manager of Apple's online services division, or internet services division, where we took Apple had created in late 1984, early 1985, an online service called Apple Link. And this today, if it were around, would be considered the Apple industry's social network. Then we called it online community. But if you were in the Apple industry, you had to be on it. So if you were an employee or developer or dealer, if you weren't on it, you just weren't anywhere. And the whole company thrived and lived on it. And the tribal culture everybody talks about was nourished on there. The developers on the Macintosh, as great as Macintosh was, the tools weren't really very good, and they supported each other through that. So even in that respect, the Macintosh wouldn't have gotten very far without Apple Inc. being there to have developers supporting each other and things. So this division, we made this division to take Apple Inc. and turn it into a more powerful force to figure out what do we want to do in the online industry. And eventually we debuted a service called eWorld for consumers, which was sort of like AOL. In fact, we licensed some AOL technology and then built our own on top of it. We're very graphical and three-dimensional. And we also helped get Salon started and some other different things like that. And really all these things were taking the cultural model of Apple, where you use technology in the service of an emotional experience, and extending it from that idea of one person, one computer, to groups of people getting an experience together. And at Apple, initially Apple Inc. was to improve the marketing, relationship marketing, customer support, and market learning or research. And we developed that over time. It was very powerful. And, I ran a whole division around that.
Well, what was yes. Salon? You mentioned Salon. You also mentioned eWorld, just to kind of help people maybe who weren't following back in the early years of Apple. What was Salon? I mean, I'm assuming you weren't getting that head shaved of yours.
Oh, no, I had hair then, or at least I did until an offsite where a colleague of mine from a few years before showed a video of us presenting to the whole company, and it came on, and somebody in my division went, "Oh, look, Peter has hair." I went, "Why would they say that?" Then I looked in the mirror and went, "Oh, a lot of this is gone." My statement of not being a vain person, I didn't even notice. So Salon is the very famous, well-known zine today, Salon. And the way that started is we had this service called eWorld, which was kind of proprietary like AOL, but we wanted to get some things going on the internet. This is 1994 or so. And the internet was getting going, but it wasn't really there yet. And there's eWorld. So, well, I'll tell you about eWorld since we're looking at eWorld. eWorld was a consumer service with a little village, some three-dimensional qualities, very online community chat, discussion board oriented with a very strong culture, clean, well-lighted place, very heavily moderated. and it tried to create experiences for people. And you'll notice that some of the buildings are shaped like computers. That's where you went for computer information. Some was one's a movie theater. That's where you went to entertainment information. And we decided we didn't want the back end to be proprietary, so we started aggregating internet sites. And we didn't realize that at the time, but this was before Yahoo or anything like that. We actually created the first true internet portal. But we didn't quite know that's what we were doing, but we did it for scale reasons and all that. It was a very beautiful service. It was got rave reviews by the critics, but we didn't put it in enough prime time. It was only available on Macintosh, and it was going to come out on Windows, but then Apple kind of blew itself up and didn't fund it and closed down the division. And we went, oh, that's too bad. And so we left to start this company. Meanwhile, we wanted to do some things on the internet, and we found these guys that were working for the San Francisco Examiner, and I think they may have been on strike, I don't know. But they were the arts and leisures guy, and they had an idea for an online zine, a magazine for arts and leisure people. And we said, okay, we'll help you do that. And, being newspaper guys, they didn't really know what to do at first. So our UI people and writers all worked on it with them and pretty much co-created it with them. And we actually provided them their initial seed funding. And eventually, it became Salon. And it's, a big zine today.
So you actually also worked with Talk City, which is a precursor to Facebook. It was a little before its time. What was why did that not work? Was it just because it was too early? I mean, was Talk City just people just didn't get it, or did Apple not really give it the support it needed?
Well, we left Apple to do for other brands on the internet what we've been doing on Apple with like Apple Links. So private label services, which is kind of what we do today, managing their online communities and later their Facebook and Twitter to help them do marketing and support and research. At the same time, we wanted to take our knowledge and experience from eWorld, which Apple closed because Apple was in big turmoil then in 1996, and bring out a consumer service. So when we launched the company, we launched it with doing some online seminars and research for Diamond Multimedia and J. Walter Thompson. And at the same time, we launched Talk City, which was one of the first large, kind of family-oriented chat community websites. And by 1999, 2000, when we went public, we had 4 million users a month, which is pretty big then. And it had one of the highest usage patterns after games and porn or something on the internet. And we had all kinds of advertisers like Procter & Gamble and other people who really liked the family-friendly nature of it and were astounded at the level of engagement their ads were getting as long as those ads stayed on Talk City, because people didn't want to leave. So that was pretty good, but it was ahead of its time. A lot of people liked it, but it had all these features and things that came later with Facebook. Not everything, but a lot of it. And this was in the late 90s. And then the world crashed. And I was losing $40 million a year on Talk City, not unlike any consumer advertising website at the time, maybe even less than they were losing. And we felt we were breaking even or making money on the private label stuff. So we sold Talk City to somebody we'd operated for, but unfortunately they went bankrupt. And I think that advertising on community websites and social media, it was too early then. And then, you had the crash in 2001, which sort of flattened everything out for a little while. And then it started coming back in 2003 to 2006. That's when Facebook and a lot of these other things get started in a small way. And then it got quite big. So I think it was mostly just ahead of its time. There were early adopters of those types of things, but not mass audiences, except for AOL, of course. AOL, had gotten quite big, and 70% of its usage was online community types of things and instant messaging. Talk City a lot.
Well, you have a lot of interesting stories about when you worked for Apple, kind of some behind the scenes, your own relationship, for example, with Steve Jobs and what you saw. What was probably the biggest learning lesson that you took through that experience that you maybe took to Live World and what you're doing today?
Well, I worked almost directly for Steve for about a year in the Mac division. I reported to somebody, reported to somebody. If you were in the Macintosh division, you worked for him. And I worked on fairly strategic stuff. So I talked to him almost every day. He was in the country, and I went to staff meetings, which were really interesting. And I learned a lot there. He really, he's a pretty intense guy. Mind of an engineer and the heart of an artist, that type of thing. And there are a few things: attention to detail, always pursuing excellence. Though I'll point out he overdid that sometimes, and we also learned lessons from Microsoft, which is like, get the product out as long as it's working well enough and then improve it. And I'd say the most significant thing that I learned from Steve Jobs, which I've carried through in my later years at Apple and here, is when you're going to hire people, it's nice if their resume fits the job you want, but you want interesting people that are going to bring passion and creativity to what they're doing. So, for example, the product manager of the Macintosh, the initial one, her schooling wasn't technology at all. She was like I think it was anthropology or architecture or something. And a guy who was really key to the interface and everything he was like a neuroscientist. He was also a photographer, but he wasn't really a technology computer programming guy, yet he had a lot to do with the whole graphical and intuitive experience. And so Steve said, hire people on the edge of greatness and push them over that edge. Now, what I've done with that, because everything about my life and my work at Apple and Live World is about people creating value together that they couldn't by themselves, collaborating through social media. I've taken that and said, hire groups of people on the edge of greatness and push them over the edge together.
And that is, I think, what you've definitely done, not just for your employees, but you also try to do that for your clients. You really do try to get behind the brand and understand them and make them better at what they do and bring out the strengths in their personality. So let's get into Live World. What exactly is Live World? What do you guys do?
Live World is a social media company that uses a combination of services and software to enable large brands to deepen their customer relationships through human engagement at scale. Now, specifically, we help them with their strategy, their engagement, their moderation, their insight. End to end, we even plan and buy their advertising, we write their content, customer support. We do all these things. Now, for any one client, it might only be one of them, or it might be all of them from end to end. So the company is a combination of an agency, platforms, and sort of outsourced workforce. As examples, we have very large clients that have thousands of Facebook pages, and they're all integrated into our platform. Anytime anybody says anything on any of their Twitter or Facebook pages or Instagram, comes into our platform where our human moderators and engagement specialists look at it and handle it with a personal touch at scale. Because, social media is a human thing, so you need human people.
What was so what made you decide to launch it? You had all this experience at Apple. You've had, you knew what it was like to work with startups. You knew what you were in for. And you said, you know what, I'm going to go out on my own. I'm going to do this. What was the flicker? What was the decision that made you decide to launch Live World?
Well, I come from an entrepreneurial background and family, and I always thought, I went to business school and all that. I always thought I'd go work at big companies for a couple of years and either start my own advertising agency or I'd start my own company or something. But I got into Apple and I just stayed there like forever because you can be quite entrepreneurial in there. And then I was doing these online services. I mean, I had pieces of it for 12 years, but particularly the last 5 years I was there. And we were very passionate about it and building up what we wanted to do. The turmoil at Apple kind of cut that off, and they were closing that down. And, I kept trying to leave, but, as a senior executive, they said, oh, you can't leave because we need you to do this or that. But at that juncture, they basically said, we're not going to do this online service stuff. This is before Steve came back. And so I left with some of my co-founders to start this company because we really believed in it. And this is not early 1996. And we really believed in the power of online dialogue and relationships to transform things and to enable people to create value together that they couldn't by themselves, whether that was ultimately through Talk City, where it was a consumer service like Facebook, and they created things, and they meet and they get married, or they get divorced, or they save lives, all kinds of crazy, great things. And then, divorced isn't, dying isn't, but many things where people came together, or helping brands bring their brand forward in a much more personable way. So we really believed in that. But it was hard to leave because even though Apple was kind of chaotic, I was in love with the place. I was part of the tribal culture, and I'd been there a very long time. Was wired all over it. And then one day I'm sitting in my home office in Saratoga, California, and there's a TV's on over here, and Sandy, the golden retriever, Sierra's predecessor, was lying down around the desk somewhere, and I'm watching this news article. And on the news article, on the TV, I think it was Channel 5, actually, but I'm not sure. They were talking about the Java programming language, which was new then, and how modular languages and all this stuff, people were going to do this and that and the other thing. And I thought, they have no idea. They're talking about this, and they have no idea that ultimately all this object-oriented stuff that can be distributed is going to be like, a worldwide orgasmic network of everything, the internet, and everybody's going to be talking to each other, and the whole world was going to change exponentially because the more people could connect with each other and dialogue, the more their experience would be greater and they know each other. I said, they just have no idea. I really have to start this company, don't I? I'm looking at the TV. Sandy, the golden retriever, gets up, walks around the desk, puts her head in my lap, and starts nodding. And I looked down and I said, well, okay, if you say so, we're going to do it. And that was the point where I went from thinking about it to committed to do it. And then because Apple was pretty much laying off all the people in my division, as soon as they laid off the best people that I liked, like my co-founder, Jenna Woodall, I called them up and talked to them about it. And Jen and I sat in what was the Peppermill restaurant in Cupertino next to the Apple campus. It's now a BJ's. And we talked about what we were going to do. And what had happened is eWorld was closing down. We had all these moderators all over the world. And and I had this little conservative business plan about starting a company, very conservative in terms of risk. And when we give it up and, take our severance packages, just go get another job. And, I knew a lot of people, so I thought I could get it funded. And this was
you
like
did.
This was March 3rd, 1996. And all these emails have been coming to us from the 70 moderators who didn't know what we were doing, but suspected we were starting a company. And they were all losing their contracts and things with Apple. And they said, what they did is they created a web ring, a series of like home pages called the eWorld Off-World Tour. They wouldn't let eWorld die. They keep talking about it. And the guy that was one of our contractors in Australia set it up for people. And all over the world, they were doing this. And they sent us these emails saying, look, we don't know what you're doing, but we want to be part of it, and we'll work for free for 6 months. So I looked at Jen and I said, this is a very rare group of people who have a cultural bond around online community, or what we today would call social media. And we shouldn't wait. We should just go and not wait and take the little 12-page plan and put it away and just start with no money or no anything and total risk. And she said, all right. And so then we did. And a mantra of the company is don't wait. And so 3 weeks later, we launched this Talk City service with the 70 moderators around the world working on it, with 400 chat rooms, all moderated, or chat sessions a month, all moderated. And I'd written Ted Leonsis, one of the senior executives at AOL that I'd worked with and helped at different points. So I need servers. I wrote him on a Friday. He didn't answer me till Monday. But a guy that had worked for us and went to an ISP called Concentric answered me on Saturday and hooked us up with servers. And another Apple executive went to a company called QuarterDeck, which had chat software, and he said, we'll loan you that. And then I called up a discussion board guy, technology guy, and said, I'm doing this. It's very cool, but I need everything for free. He said, fine, here it is. And then we called the guys at Netscape and Yahoo that used to work for us. And they said, we'll get you a link right away. And then the guys in India that were contractors and turned out to own all the newspapers in India, but they were moderator contractors for some reason also, formed a press release that Apple killed eWorld, but the citizens of eWorld rise up in rebellion against Apple.
The rebellion.
Fortunately, the guy in Australia was watching the guys in India, told me about this, and I went, no, don't do that. Apple's helping. And I wrote a marketing plan that afternoon and just sent it to everybody. And this is how we started the company. About 100 people around the world, over half of whom we had never met in person but had online relationships with, came together because of their belief that you could create a cultural experience through dialogue and relationships, and we created it together. That's the start of the company. We are a company whose solutions for brands is about bringing people together through online relationships to create value, and that is exactly how we started the company ourselves.
And that is exactly what I want to talk about. I want to talk about what you're doing now for companies, how you've continued that philosophy, who your brands are. I want to get into kind of the legal and financial aspect of handling social media, especially representing an industry that's not your core, and how you guys manage that. But before I do, I want to thank a sponsor of Marketing Mavericks, which is LegalZoom. This episode of Marketing Mavericks is sponsored by LegalZoom. If you're thinking about starting a business, now is the best time. It's National Start Your Business Month at LegalZoom.com, and it's never been easier to start building your future. LegalZoom provides the support you need for more than 10 years. They've helped 1 million businesses, owners, just like you. That's right. If you need advice for your business, no problem. LegalZoom is not a law firm, but they've built a network of trusted attorneys to provide the guidance you need for your specific situation. And here's the best part. During National Start Your Business Month, LegalZoom is offering an attorney consultation for only $50. If you're unsure about the best way to start, or if you already run a business and need some advice, this offer is for you. Get legal advice for your business with no further obligation for a low one-time cost. Go to LegalZoom.com today to find out more. Attorney consultations are provided by independent attorneys available in most states. Get the legal help you need for your business at LegalZoom.com and enter offer code MM in the referral box to save even more. That's LegalZoom.com and use promo code MM. Legal help is here. Great idea to get legal help right off the bat. In fact, when you start a business, there's all kinds of issues you don't know are going to happen. And get advice. Get the best advice you can to get started so you don't have to worry about that. And you can focus on what you do. LegalZoom. And thanks to our guest, who's Peter Friedman, and he's been telling his story about how his experience, his background working for Apple, how he got the idea and funding to start his company, liveworld.com, and what you guys are doing, working with some pretty big brands. And, you know, I think the biggest challenge, Peter, that exists in kind of this social media relationship space is, especially if you're an agency, and I've worked on the agency side, I've been a consultant, it is, how do you have the voice of the brand when you're not actually the brand? And every brand has their own brand personality. They have their own voice. You guys have been doing this for a while now, and you represent some pretty big brands. I think, Walmart's been a client. We talked about some, Wells Fargo and some in the financial space and legal space. First to get started, how do you take on the voice of a brand that's not even in your industry? It certainly isn't a company that you work for. How do you put that cloak on, that Superman cape of the brand on, Peter?
Well, you have to really, especially in social media, more so that all agencies have to do this. I mean, if they're going to do a good job of television or anything, they have to understand the brand. The difference here is social media is much more dynamic. It's an engagement media form. And the way you talk and how you talk and everything on an ongoing iterative basis really makes a difference. And social media is really becoming the most pervasive form of media, and particularly because it's integrated to people's daily lives, and they're all talking to each other, and they really care about what other people say more than what a brand says. So ultimately, for most brands, their consumers are going to experience the brand more through social media than any other marketing form, and maybe even than the product itself, because the power of experiencing it with other people is so great. So you really have to learn the brand, and you have to help the brand develop a model that brings the brand forward on social media that's quite different than, broadcast. So, you can have your brand identity and put it on TV and make extraordinary commercials and print. You're still saying, here, this is me, here it is, at people. If you do a good job, it's done well. But in social media, it's an iterative conversation and dynamic that is much more dynamic. So what we do is, we study the company, we talk to them a lot. We sometimes go out and do things. We have a big retail client that we shadow in the stores, and I've worked in their stores, or not work because you're not allowed to do that, but I've been around them a lot. Even I've done that.
You've actually been a greeter at Walmart. Come on, own it, Peter.
Well, I'm not supposed to talk about my current. Okay. But I will say I had one client that I was standing in near the door talking to people, and a little old lady came in and peered at me, and she said, "Are you the guy?" I went, "What? Are you the guy?" I went, "No, that Fred over there is the guy. I'm just helping." Because I didn't see your badge. But I learned a lot that half day, a lot. And we took pictures of the guy and me, who was a veteran, and an elderly guy. And we said, "We want to send this to you. What's your address?" And he said, 3040 Broad Street. He gave me his postal address. So we thought, okay, well, this is a different generation. So we went to the corner of the store where you could print photos, and we gave it to him. Anyway, so we do all that. But the other thing we do is help the company understand how to develop its presence in social media in a way that it's powerful. And as we do that, we really learn it. And we train our people in the voice of the brand. And this is something we call social brand identity. And the way you have to think about it is your online presence is the party you're throwing for your customers online. And you have to think through, how do you make a good party for them? What's the ambiance, the feel, the design? Some of that's graphics, but it's more about who's there and what they're doing. And you're bringing together interesting people for them and fostering an experience for them, not going to a party as the host, just standing up and talking about yourself. And we're great party planners. We're great ushers and bouncers and DJs, but it's still the brand's party. So we tell all of our clients, you have to show up to your own party, and you have to do things and participate. And generally, we don't take on clients who won't have at least somebody inside that is focused on this. We had one who said, "I got money, I don't got people, I want you to do it." And we finally worked out if they paid for 3/4 of a person and gave them a desk inside their company, we would do it. But we effectively made one of our people one of them. And so you have to think about, is the party you're throwing, is it edgy, like MTV, when it was all the music stuff was? Is it a big business brand and the party is more like a seminar and golf outing on the weekend? For TJ Maxx, who was a client of ours at one point, the party was around an adventure and shopping. We do work for Zoetis, the largest animal drug company in the world. And their work we do for them for their equine or horses products is centered around a Facebook page called EQ Stable. If you like horses or you want to see an extraordinary Facebook page, patting myself on the back, go there, EQ Stable. And this party is kind of a barbecue at a county fair or rodeo or something like that. And then you really work and say, what is that? Or what are the values of your customers? And what's the feel of it? And that's going to inform the training and the content. Yeah, there it is. This is a great page. We did everything here, strategy, advertising, everything. It's huge engagement. It ran over 20% initially, still well over 10, and that's like unheard of.
Oh, and, my God, what is that?
Well, that's about horses.
Yeah.
And you'll notice as you look through it, most of it, not this picture, but most of the other ones, and even some there, it's all about horses. And there's like an incredible number of photos of horses that have come from the customers. And this is a page that is about people's love of horses. And that's their party. And it's not talking about the products a lot. Here and there we do. But mostly we're showing them that we could create an experience for people who love horses. And people from Zoetis are on the page. There's Tina from there. And she's talking about how she likes horses. Sometimes they have celebrities like Sam Elliott, but it's about his love of horses. And every so often we slip in, and you should see your vet about this. And so this is creating a emotional, social experience with the values of the brand that people will appreciate. So they come to love the brand and think of it and say, well, these people really understand me. So when I'm going to go get medicine for my horse, I think I'll get it from them because it's not some faceless corporate brand. It's Tina and Joe and Mary and all these other people that are part of the community now.
And what I keep hearing you say is about the people. It's about relationships. And you guys actually do a really good job, regardless of the brand, is making sure that it's the connection to people. We talked before the show started about, I think it was before the show started, about how I've moved. And I recently reached out to Comcast, and they did a great job in the past of connecting. They didn't really connect with me on my issue. I never heard back from them. But had I would have felt like they cared. You're talking about listening to the fans of this page. You're talking about them sharing their content. That's really, sounds like we're oversimplifying, but that is really the core of what makes this type of marketing successful, right?
It is. And if you look at different studies from different groups, that I could look them up for you specifically if you wanted, something like, 70-something% of marketeers believe the customer experience, as opposed to the product, is going to be the battlefield of competition. But only 20 or 30% right now have a strategy for it, which means anybody who picks this up has an opportunity to leave everybody else in their dust. And if you ask consumers, 80, 90% say how the company treats them will be the most influential factor on their purchase decisions.
What is the biggest challenge that you see when you start to work with one of these really big brands? Again, I've worked with some pretty big companies. I've worked for Verizon, Viacom, I've worked for Comcast. I've worked for some companies that you've got all these silos, all these different, organizations trying to work together. I think it's much easier to work with a small to medium-sized business to help them understand what they need to do, as long as they're in the right mindset to begin with. When you have such a big company with lots of different opinions and lots of different input, it's much more challenging. What do you think is the biggest challenge as you start the initial process of working with a major brand?
Well, I think it's, focus and commitment is one. Because as the digital head of one of our clients a few years ago, and this is one of the top 5 CPG companies in the world, said, social media isn't just for Christmas, it's for life. And so that means you have to be focused, you have to be committed, you have to dedicate resources. And certainly for many brands, the biggest challenge is letting go of the last 60 years of marketing that is sort of command, control, compliance, talking at people. And so that's a triple C company, we call that. And shifting to what we call a triple I company, which is inspire, involve, imagine, where you inspire your customers to involve themselves in what you're trying to do, and then let their imagination take off. And that's very difficult, because if you just spent 60 years powerfully marketing by figuring out what your customers want or not and telling them what it is, and not really listening to them back, which is basically what broadcast media is, it's very difficult to shift to something that the customers are driving and you're creating experiences for them. I mean, that's not that nobody did any of that, but in terms of the mantra of a company, and it affects the culture and how they measure things. So we find more and more the senior executives, the CEO, the CMO, whoever's in charge of customer support, they're sort of getting it. Oh, this social media, this isn't, years ago it was who's that Peter guy talking about it? Then it was an experiment, then it was a minor channel, then a big channel. And now people understand it's a mainline marketing thing, largely because the budgets got so big and the number of people are so big. Some are coming to understand that it's going to become the platform and context for at least all their marketing and maybe their whole business. Senior executives can get to that quickly because they got time and they're being strategic. And then we have the social network generation coming out of college and graduate school, anybody born after 1978, well, they grew up with it a lot, and so they get it. But in between that, you have a couple of generations of people who are used to this other model, and they're set up for it, and they're measured on it, and they get awards for, a commercial or a debut of a website, not for building ongoing dialogue and relationships. So there's a lot of things you have to change. My book talks about this, by the way.
And I want to get into your book. I want to talk about this advice that you have for CEOs, for CMOs, for leadership, because so many still today don't really get it, or they're at the beginning of understanding, but there's a lot of growth that they have to make. And I want to talk about that, as well as a couple of your client success stories and what we can maybe learn from them, even if we aren't a major brand. But before we do that, I want to thank another sponsor of Marketing Mavericks, which is Squarespace. That's right. This episode is brought to you by Squarespace.com. With Squarespace, it's easy for you to create a professional website, blog, or online store. Squarespace features an elegant interface, beautiful templates, and incredible, speaking of which, 24/7 customer support. If I know lots of friends, and in fact, not just friends of mine, but people that we've had on the show have talked about their experience with Squarespace. We're not all web developers, so it's easy to have something that makes your life and getting your web presence up there and beautiful for all your customers. Here's why you'll love Squarespace. It's simple, it's powerful, and it's beautiful. Making changes is clearer and simpler than ever before. Incredibly easy to use, that's right. And if you want some help, maybe you feel like you need somebody to kind of guide you through it. Maybe you want a second opinion, just like, hey, how does this top look on me? Well, Squarespace has a live chat and email support 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Squarespace starts at, get this, just $8 a month, and they take care of the hosting so you don't have to. Plus, you get a free domain name if you buy Squarespace for a year. All Squarespace websites are responsive and scale to look great on any device. E-commerce is available. Every website comes with a free online store, which is so important these days. We all need it. Well, it's going to be right included with your Squarespace. And with cover pages, you can set up a beautiful one-page online presence in minutes. It's perfect for creating quick landing pages for your brand, personal identity, or to promote a new product. So start a trial with no credit card required. That's it. It's so easy. They even make it easy to get started. Start building your website today. When you sign up for Squarespace, make sure to use the offer code MM to get 10% off of your first purchase. We thank Squarespace for their support of Marketing Mavericks. Squarespace built it beautiful. And not just beautiful, but certainly easy. Squarespace does make it easy. I think that's probably the most attractive part, is it not only looks really good and it looks professional, but it's easy to use so you can focus on the core of everything you do. And our guest today also makes it easy for businesses and brands to focus on what they do. They take the social media element at ease. And I think one of the things that, one of the reasons we wanted to have you on the show today, Peter, is you also make it easy for CEOs who are struggling with how to lead their team, but understanding social media. Your book, which actually helps CMOs understand, the CMO Social Media Handbook, is available. In fact, you can get that, I think, online. Where can you get your book, by the way, in case people want to check it out?
Amazon.com. There's a hardcover book. There's an ebook. If you want, you can go to our website at liveworld.com and you can get the full PDF. But if you want the ebook, which I think is probably around $10 or something, that's Amazon, and the hardcover book is also on Amazon.
So you make it easy. You even make it easy to read your book. Why did you decide to write a book? I mean, we have lots of people that write books on different aspects. This one is very specific advice for the CMO who needs to understand social media. What did you decide to do this?
Well, we found that a lot of books are written on social media, but when you boil it all down, most of them are either kind of like, we like good government. Isn't social media great? And that's fine. They talk about the general idea of it and why it's so important. And then, but they don't really tell you what to do. And then there's another set of books that are very tactical, and they're good too. And they're like, this is when you put a post up on Twitter, and this is when you put one on Pinterest, and so on. But there wasn't really anything that's a senior executive or anybody in the marketing group that, can use it, and especially they aspire to be the senior executive, say, how do I wield this entire media form and my organization to bring my organization into this future and get like really effective results? And the book, it's quite practical. It's quite hands-on. There's even a toolkit at the back of, what to say to your lawyer or legal department, and what to say to your CEO. What do you say to the social media intern? How do you do this and that? Talks about the party model. But it really says, in very nuts and bolts way, how do you, at a macro level, move forward in it? And it starts with, you need a team. You said focus before. You need people dedicated to it, and how you have to support them and deal with that in the context that probably most of the cultural and measurement models in your company don't lend themselves towards it. And then how do you measure it? A lot of people say, oh, it's new and it's soft like PR, so you can't have ROI. Well, that's like BS. These people are in business. And, CMO is being asked for the ROI on all marketing by a CEO. You can't say to them there's no ROI. So we talk through some of the different ways to have ROI in social media. It is new, it is developing, but you can do it. And then we walk through how do you socialize your brand, and this thing I talked about earlier, social brand identity. We give examples of different companies and what they are, what social storytelling is, which I think is kind of the leading edge of the market now. And by social storytelling, I don't mean just post a story, but how do you get your customers really involved in the story, and it becomes their story, and it's either about them in the first place, or they pick it up and co-create it and recreate it so that they involve themselves with their own imagination and a whole bunch of other things like that. Crisis management, that type of thing.
What do you think is the next thing in the space of social marketing, using, Facebook? And it was funny, somebody in the chat room mentioned, Google Plus and how they're changing that. They've kind of realized that it's not quite what they wanted it to be. It's not turned out to be the case, but certainly we see a lot of success on Facebook and Twitter and newer platforms that are, Instagram, Snapchat. There are places where businesses and brands are reaching millennials in a way that they've never been able to do before. What is the next big thing? What do you think is going to happen next?
What we call a holistic social customer experience. To date, social media, which is growing in size and depth and range with more services and so on, and it keeps becoming more and more distinctly different than other media forms. So you do want to integrate them. Today, most social media marketing, one, is traditional advertising and digital sort of shoved through social channels at people. So it's got to become more engaging, and people will do that. But part of this is because it's still focused around a post. Brand puts up a post, customer or user responds to comments on it, we respond back, and then we go on. That's not really about the customer. So what we're going to see, and there's bits and pieces of it now, but it's going to be a lot more over the next year and the year after. We're rolling out all kinds of new services and technology for this ourselves, and so are other people. We like ours better. Is where you start paying more attention to the customer, and you're keeping track of your conversation history with them. Well, what did we talk to about this person before? Facebook gives us all this information about them, and we can collect more. So you build a social profile, kind of like a customer support CRM system. So when you call up a company for support, they know who you are, and they know when they talk to you last. And we want to do this dynamically in social media, so we can say, okay, this person, Tonya, isn't the person who made this comment on our post. This person, Tonya, is Tonya. And here's who she is. And this is what we talked to her about before. And this is what she cares about. So you build it more around them. So that's the biggest thing. And that's going to exist in a world where social storytelling, where, again, it's not, separate posts, but a series of programming that's thought out that allows the customers to go forward with the stories. And I could give you an interesting example of customer-centric storytelling, if you like, as well.
So, give us an example of that. Give us an example of maybe one of your clients or a brand that's doing a really good job at that kind of storytelling.
Okay, so, Zoetis, which we mentioned, and they just launched a new page we did for them called Catosphere, whose engagement is just off the charts. Catosphere, for cat owners. So that's one. But let's use an example that it's not our work. So
Catosphere, it's for cat owners?
C-A-T is sphere. Catosphere.
I'm sorry. I just got a little distracted by that. That sounds cute. All right.
And the party for cat owners is different than the party for horse owners. And then your Zoetis, you've got cattle, dairy, and cattle beef, which are different, and pork and all kinds of other animals and things like that. So, those are quite good too. And then as another example, we'll take Starbucks. As a disclosure, Starbucks is one of our pre-IPO investors, still owns part of the company, but this isn't a program that we happen to do for them. This is a great company. The vision of the company of Howard Schultz, the co-founder, who I count as a friend, has always been to create a third place in people's lives. And, for years, they didn't even have any marketing. The customers did the marketing. They do now, but they didn't for many years. And their out-of-store research always showed that people said what they liked best was the other people, even if they didn't talk to anybody. So that's been the case for a long time. And just this last year, they launched a campaign, social media-based program called Meet Me at Starbucks. And it starts off with, a video or something that says, millions of people come to Starbucks every day, but it's never been about the coffee. Meet me at Starbucks. And they went around the world to at least 30, maybe 60 Starbucks, and they filmed people. I don't know, it was the actual people. They had actors, looks like actual people. And their experience is Starbucks. Now, it's a Starbucks because you can see the logo on the wall. And everybody's got coffee cups, that look like Starbucks coffee cups on the table in their hands. But there isn't a single word about the products or the company in this. It's about people sharing experiences. And you see them talking and meeting. Here's the old folks and the young folks and everybody and the family, and they're all just, meeting, and you see that. And it says, shared experiences. Well, they did this, and immediately the customers pick it up. And a woman says, oh, I met my husband at Starbucks. Here's our wedding picture. And another group says, well, we do that. Our pet group comes here, and here's the story of that. And here's the charity group. And so they start off with a brand inspiration and call to action, using the brand's marketing straight to get the story going. And then they let it turn over to the customers who started telling their stories organically and really much richer and authentic than the brand could ever do by itself. Low production values, like reality TV, but everybody likes reality TV, and they relate to it more. And then Starbucks assembled the best stories and made a Pinterest page out of them. So brand inspiration and call to action, inspire the customers to get involved and use their imagination, and then the brand comes back and amplifies it in social media and possibly in traditional media. So that's social storytelling. It's not a produced, pre-scripted movie of the week. It's kind of scripted improv or directed reality TV where the customers are the main legs of it, and then the brand helps get it started and move it along. And we built a whole model for that.
Peter, you had me at Catosphere.
If you can look that up, it's just off the hook. It's so funny.
And Pinterest, by the way. You were saying all my favorite things. I was totally glued in. I think what you guys are doing is really interesting. I think you have really mastered. I mean, there's a lot of social media companies that try to do various pieces of the social process. There's a lot of software to use. You've got a lot of great advice in this book of yours, and it's easy to read. You make it easy for people to get. I just love what you're doing, and I'm so excited that you took the time out to come on our show today and share your story. There's never enough time, though, Peter. I told you. It's going to go by really fast, and we're never going to be able to share everything.
That's so fast.
We need to have you here at the Brick House. We need to get you in studio.
This is because dialogue and conversation is so powerful and builds relationships. Where did I hear that before?
I don't know. Maybe somebody we know. Maybe Peter. And with that hat, by the way, I think you called me Tonya, my grandpa, who actually wore those hats. Very, very fond memories of the hats. And you get yours in San Francisco, right?
I get them. Well, I get some of them there. I get some of them in a place called Gorin Brothers. That's my hat store. There's a little symbol. I'm giving them a shout out. There's a little symbol right here. That if it has that on it, it's Gorin Brothers. And there's one here in New York, not far from me. Next time I'll wear a different hat. I have a lot of hats. And I wore this hat because, and the book jacket here somewhere, there it is. That's my hat.
That's
I wore
the man. That's Peter.
It's me. This hat's an Asher.
We got to get you out here to meet Leo. He's definitely got a lot of hats. It's a whole studio of hats. So we'll have to have you come on and inside. Thank you so much again for coming on the show, and certainly say hi to my good friend Jeff Hazlett. You'll see him, I'm sure, run into him somewhere in New York.
Yes, we're having dinner sometime in the next few days. He's a really great guy and recently joined our board of directors. We're really excited.
Well, and I'm just telling him I said hi, and he's doing a great job. I love his show and the C-Suite Network. So thanks again. And if somebody wants to follow you on social media, maybe connect with you, check out your book, whatever, what's the best way they can reach you, Peter?
At Peter Friedman on Twitter is the best way.
There he is right there. And this man will respond. I am proof of that. So you can follow him at Peter Friedman.
This is true. There, if you go there and you go to the Live World Twitter, there's lots of things we're posting about what we're doing, where we're speaking, things we're coming out with. Our team, it's not just me, produces some of the most insightful, I think, and meaningful point of views and white papers. Just done one, I don't know if we've really released it, but there are articles about it, that organic reach on Facebook is not dead. That'll raise a few eyebrows. And what sort of integrated content programming of organic and paid and social and promotional. Well, there you go. There it is. Boy, you're good. That's based on one of those white papers. So there's a whole team of people we have collaborating to create all kinds of value that none of us could create by ourselves.
Yeah, Brian's bringing his A game today, that's for sure. Thanks again, Peter, for coming on the show. Can't wait to see you. And you'll have to come out here to Petaluma and say hi.
Petaluma bound.
Petaluma bound. Thanks again, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you so much.
And that was Peter Friedman, who is the founder, CEO, and chairman at liveworld.com. Great team he's got there. What we didn't get to, which we'll have to talk about, we'll have to do a show all on virtual employees and how he manages his team. He's got a lot of employees, and they're almost all virtual, different locations all over the globe, and really great company. You can follow me on social media if you like. You can go to @Tonya Hall Radio on Twitter. You can also find me on Facebook and various other social sites. I'm pretty responsive as well. And if you have an interest in a certain type of topic for the show, maybe you want to tell us how you enjoy it and how you've applied it to your business or your marketing strategy, please email me. Yeah, that's right. Email. It's old school, but I read them. And that's mavericks@twit.tv. That's mavericks@twit.tv. I want to hear from you. I want to hear, and I will read your emails. Thanks again, everybody. And until next week, have a good one.